Hello, it's the Curious Low, back with another Game of Thrones review, and today we are going to be discussing Season 7, Episode 4, The Spoils of War. As always, I'll be starting with the plot lines that I think provided the least amount of plot movement and important things happening, and go all the way up to the ones which I think were the most important. And obviously this week was crazy, so all three of the main plots that we touched on this week had a lot going on, but I'm going to start with Winterfell, because it seems like the easiest to tackle at this moment in time. We got some interesting stuff with the Cat's Paw Dagger with Peter Baelish bringing it to Bran, the creepiness of him saying chaos is a ladder, and I have a little bit of a theory about that, just that, again, not that really anybody's disputing this, but I really think that they're trying to hammer home that Bran is just as confused by his powers as kind of we are as an audience. I mean, the look he gave when he said chaos is a ladder, it was like he was remembering something. Like, he did this whole, chaos is a ladder. And I feel like that's going to play into maybe why he isn't immediately telling Sansa, hey, Jon is a Targaryen, here's all the proof, go talk to Jojen Reed, whatever he needs to do to make the Northerners believe this and make Daenerys believe it and all that. I think that a lot of it has to do with who he's talking to at that moment and who he can remember. Like memories are getting triggered and stuff like that. Like later when he does talk to Arya, there's kind of that moment where he's talking about her at the crossroads and stuff like that, and he easily could have told Sansa that Arya's alive and she's coming here. I don't know, I don't think that he's willfully trying to hold back information from them. I think that he really is trying to be like, this is the information that you need to know right at this moment, but there's only so much that his brain can take. He's still human, even though he has this sort of immortal, maybe, consciousness that is part of him now, or all of the memories of the weirwood trees. It's kind of hard to tell what's really going on with him, especially as it pertains to what's happening in the books versus what's happening on the show. It's kind of hard to tell what of the books is being transferred to the show, but as far as the show goes, it really does seem like they are trying to play up this notion of him not having control over his memories and his brain and what he's bringing to the table, and that sometimes he's not going to be able to know exactly what's going on. And of course, the scene with Mira, we'll get to Arya in a second, but the scene with Mira was just so sad. I feel for her, and I really do agree with her that he died in that cave. I mean, this is a different character now. Maybe we will get him back at some point. But I think that this has sent Mira on, hopefully, at least in the books, if this is following kind of a similar path of the books, I think that she will most certainly be journeying back to her homeland to get her dad and tell him sort of what's happened. And maybe Bran has told her some of his visions and she just doesn't believe him, or I don't know. Something will happen, or maybe because Jon is the king in the north, or because Daenerys is here. Something with Mira and her connection to her father is definitely going to be important, at least in the book. I don't know if it's necessarily going to come into play in the show. I hope it does, because it's really interesting. And the fact that he is probably the only person alive that knows for sure Jon's lineage. I think maybe Littlefinger has guessed at it just because of some of the faces he's made. I really feel like Helen Reed is the only character that is alive that knows this information. So I'd be really happy to get him in the show and show some of what's going on there. And we had Arya return. Yay, I'm so happy she's back. And I'm so glad that my fears were for naught. She did not meet the Hound. She did not decide to go somewhere else and do something else. Now that we've had this reunion, we just need Jon to get back, and it doesn't look like he's going to be back next episode, but I hope, maybe, in the next episode, or maybe the episode after that, we will get him back with all of his siblings, and then everybody can go everywhere. Arya can go down to King's Landing and kill Cersei while wearing Jaime's face, if that's the case of what's going to happen, as some people are starting to think, and I would actually really like that, because it negates the prophecy of it being her younger brother, but it's the hands of her younger brother, because she looks like Cersei's younger brother, and just a whole mess of things having to do with prophecies in the books that they haven't really touched on in the show, but it would just be really cool if that's the way the prophecy played out. Regardless, I kind of want her to kill Cersei now. I've sort of been in the camp of no, it has to be Jaime and it'd be so poetic. I don't know, it'd be really cool if it was Arya as Jaime. I'm getting so off track here. Lovely to see Arya back. I loved her kind of verbal jousting with the guards and then ducking out of the way. The scene with Brienne was fantastic. I have no idea why Sansa is so upset. Sansa is a brilliant leader. She's just come off of, in the previous episode, people telling her, you're good at this. Thank goodness we have you here while Jon's away. She needs to stand on her own, and she's stronger than this, and I hope this doesn't turn into a stupid jealousy thing. I have a feeling Peter is going to turn them against each other, just because he's Peter and that look he gave Arya. He wants to bring down the house just like he did with the House of Aaron, and kind of take control over it. I really hope that the Starks are smarter than that, and I think that they are. So I hope that they see through him, because I really think he's going to do something shady. We've passed the dagger on to Arya now, so that's kind of interesting that she has it and not Bran, since it sort of pertains to his plotline, but he's right. What use does he have with it? He's not going to be fighting. So I guess that means that we'll probably see Arya fighting some White Walkers at some point, since it is Valyrian steel. I guess she could then in turn pass it on to somebody else. The fight between Brienne and Arya was fantastic. Obviously, it didn't really give a ton to the plot, other than what I already mentioned with Sansa and her weird look and Peter's weird look. And, I mean, it gave them an appreciation of each other, at least. Just Brienne and Arya being like, hey, you're a badass lady too. So that was pretty cool. And we move on to Dragonstone, where we had a couple of fun sequences, but I think the most important thing that happened was the cave paintings. Everybody's joking that obviously Davos and Jon drew like 2 seconds before they called Daenerys in there. But whatever, I believe that they are actually real cave paintings. It's cool that they have that. It's cool some of the symbolism that's in there. You should definitely check out some people that are way smarter than me that have posted videos about all of the symbolism. It's deep, and like the circle with the line through it, and then the like spiral thing, and like what all of that can mean, and references to other George R. R. Martin books. Like, it's just crazy. It goes real deep. Look it up if you're interested. But it does bring Dany to a place where I think she kind of believes that they're a threat now, or at least she believes that Jon believes that they're a threat now, where I think before she was still not even sure if Jon was telling the truth about his own feelings. She's still being ridiculous. I love Dany, but I really think she's gonna make some poor decisions this season, and in the next week on Game of Thrones, it looks like she's gonna make some poorish decisions. So hopefully Jon's good, I don't know, influence can help her not do that. We'll see. We got some fun scenes between a couple of different characters. We had the scene between Dany and Missandei talking about her moment with Grey Worm, which was cute, but honestly not that important. We had the scene between Davos and Missandei and Jon, which I think was a little bit more important, and it might have some callbacks later, but it still was just a lot of talking and kind of character moments. We had Theon back, which I was looking forward to a ton and was not really that big of a deal, because Jon's just going to kind of let him do what he wants to do, I guess, because he saved Sansa, which I get, but Theon. I mean, I know he's been punished a lot, let's be real, but I want to see him have a redemption, and he keeps, like, trying and then just failing utterly. So I really, really hope that he can have some sort of real redemption, and it'll probably require him sacrificing himself for his sister, because I really think that's the only way the character at this point can redeem himself, is to get to that point that he is Theon again. He's not Reek in any way, shape, or form, and he does sacrifice himself for family. I think that that'll be a good conclusion to his story. Obviously, there could be something different, but that's where I sort of see this going. Regardless, I really wanted to see Jon kick the shit out of Theon, but he didn't. Maybe someday soon. And of course, Theon asks where Dany went, and we cut to King's Landing. I'm going to rewind to the beginning of the episode and talk about all the things that were happening at King's Landing and on the road to King's Landing. At the beginning of the episode, they are still outside of Highgarden. I know a lot of people are confused as to the geography of where things were happening. If you are still confused and you haven't looked it up at this moment, at the beginning of the episode, when we see Bronn and the Tarleys and Jaime and all them getting all the stuff, they are leaving Highgarden. They're still at Highgarden. When we return to them at the end of the episode, Lord Tarley mentions that all of the gold is safely inside King's Landing. The river that they're fighting next to is actually a river that leads into Blackwater Bay, which is right outside King's Landing. We've seen the Battle of Blackwater Bay. People are making fun of the fact that it's so deep, but I mean, it's a river that probably could be like a tiny bay almost, because it's like right off the ocean, so I could believe it being very deep very quickly. So basically between those two sequences, we had a lot of time lapse, like probably a week or even more. It's kind of hard to tell how long it takes them to get places, because they're not exactly consistent on the show. But before we get into the big battle, we also had some scenes with Cersei and people from the Iron Bank and all that. I've said this before this season, I'm sort of over Cersei. I want to see her die already. We only have, 3-4 episodes left this season. I have a feeling she's going to die this season. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that's going to be kind of like the culmination of this season, is like, hey, the Seven Kingdoms may be not totally stable, but they're sort of sorted for the moment. Now we have to turn our eyes to the north, and it's probably going to end with Cersei dying and the wall getting attacked and that stuff starting to go down. Okay, the attack outside of King's Landing. So much happened here, I don't even know where to start. It was crazy and insane. When I watched this episode for the first time, I was feeding my son, and I was just, thank goodness he's so young and doesn't understand English yet, because I was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, like multiple times as this was going down. Like, first when they just cut to King's Landing and you realize, oh my gosh, that's where Dany went. She probably went with the dragon. And then when you hear the Dothraki coming and you have all of the Lannisters, like, freaking out and, like, trying to line up, like, oh, it was so awesome to see such a cool, unique, I mean, not totally unique, I've seen similar things, but it was fairly unique to this show of this sort of, like, rumbling in the distance. Like, this is very different than Battle of the Bastards, where you had tension built up in a very different way, where you had them just standing off in the scene with Rickon. This was like, we know there's something coming, we don't have time, we have to go, 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 go. But it still built this amazing tension that personally I don't think was relieved for the rest of the episode, because they were just mounting and mounting and mounting, putting different characters in danger. And just when you have a battle that has characters that we love on both sides of it, and in the case of Tyrion, people who have a vested interest in characters from both sides of this battle coming out alive, it's, tension city. I want to touch on a couple of small things that I think are interesting as far as what I think is going to happen for the rest of the show. I've already mentioned on some of these videos before that I think all, or at least 2 of Dany's dragons are going to die. That's what happened when Aegon the Conqueror came. And I think that we can also have some interesting insight because of who these characters are named after. Now, Drogon, the dragon that she rode into battle, is named after Khal Drogo, her late husband, was killed by an infected sword wound. And we know that Qyburn knows all about poisons, and we know that Qyburn helped build the scorpion, and it's called a scorpion, and it hit him in his shoulder. It hit Drogon in his shoulder. I personally think Drogon's going to die. And I know that that's going to make a lot of people really sad, but we've made it through the direwolves. We can make it through the dragons dying. We'll be okay. Just prepare yourselves now for the inevitable, very sad sequence where Drogo dies. I do think that each of the dragons is going to die in something that is fairly poetic to how their namesakes died, the other 2 being named after her 2 brothers. I also love the line, all your new riches weighing you down, and then at the end, Jaime is weighed down by the riches of his bright and shiny armor that, the Dothraki don't wear those metal dresses or metal skirts or whatever they call them in season 1. So that was kind of just a cool little nod to, like, what was going to happen to Jaime, that he's weighed down. As far as Jaime's concerned, I think he's okay. I think Bronn is okay. I think they will both make it out okay. I'm not sure if they're going to be captured. They're both people that Tyrion dearly loves, for lack of a better term. So if they do get captured, I don't think anything terrible is going to happen to them. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to get captured. I know that it's poetic, but I don't think that we're ever going to get some sort of, like, hostage situation. I think it'd be treading the same ground that we've already gone through before with Jaime being captured. I think there's still more to happen with Jaime being in King's Landing as Cersei goes more and more crazy. And while I am not interested in Cersei's plotline, really, I am very interested in Jaime's and how he responds to everything that's going to be happening. Alright, I could say so much more about this battle, but I'm sure all of you have seen a bazillion YouTube videos at this point. I'm not making this video till Saturday because, like I said, 2-month-old. It's hard to find time to make this video. So I'm sure you've all seen a million people talk about this battle, and I'm not going to add anything new. It was fucking awesome. I mean, what else can you say about it? There were people being turned to ash, and gosh, I can't even wrap my mind around it, and I've already watched the episode, I think, 3 or 4 times this week. So I'm beyond excited to see what happens this coming week. I think that naming the episode Eastwatch is very interesting because we've not really been at the Wall at all. We had one teeny tiny little sequence that was not even a sequence because Ed was there for 2 seconds, and I love Ed, and he had like 1 line. He had 2 lines, actually. So we need more stuff at the Wall. I don't think that we'll see people at Castle Black. We're probably only going to see people at Eastwatch, but Tormund's up there. We could reasonably believe that Hound and Co. have gotten to Eastwatch at this point. It's been, 3 episodes since we last saw them, so they could be at Eastwatch because we know that they know that that's where the White Walkers are going to. Any number of people could be at Eastwatch, so it should be a very interesting group of people. I don't know that we'll actually see the White Walkers there yet, maybe at the very end of the episode. I have a feeling it's going to be more about the politics of what's going on at Eastwatch. We know that we have seen some stuff in the next week on Game of Thrones thing, that we're going to be seeing some stuff with Jon, probably getting a raven from Bran, which is interesting because it seems like he's telling him that there's stuff going on at Eastwatch, but he's not telling him about the Targaryen lineage, so that's weird. It looks like Drogon is going to, bow to him or, eat him or something. He's growling at him, but Drogon is not one to hold back if he's got an enemy in front of him. So I don't know what's going on with that whole thing. Dany has the line, the, like, join me or die. Like, I'm not a murderer, but I'll kill you, which, again, Dany, come on, know your lineage. Know that your house and your family has a predisposition to freaking going crazy, and accept that. I mean, it seems like she has, but at the same time, she's doing some crazy stuff. Like, don't be more of the same. Like Jon said, don't be that person that's like, I'm gonna burn down your castles if you don't want me to rule. I feel like she talks like she's a completely sane person and would be willing to negotiate with people like she did with Yara and like she has been with Jon. Like, not just immediately being like, okay, you don't want to join me? Fine, you're dead and I've just taken over your kingdom. Like, it's weird that she would turn on that so quickly to then just be like, all right, you don't want to join me, I'm going to burn you. So we'll see on this week's episode. I've made this episode a little bit shorter than some of my others just because it's Saturday and I've got to get it up before tomorrow. So hopefully, again, I have a 2-month-old, but hopefully I will try and get this episode at least up by Thursday or Friday next week. We'll see. I can't wait to discuss with you guys in the comments below and over on Twitter what you thought of this episode of Game of Thrones, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!